Toxic people are not afraid of your strength. What they truly fear is the moment you no longer feel the need to prove anything to them. Because in that moment, the only power they ever had over you disappears. And what unsettles them most is not what you do, but who you become when you stop reacting according to the old script. According to Carl Jung, much toxic behavior survives through an unconscious mechanism called ego projection. Toxic individuals cannot tolerate their own inner emotions, emptiness, insecurity, anger, shame, so they need someone else to carry those feelings for them. They provoke, manipulate, and provoke reactions in order to force others to reflect those emotions back to them. That reaction gives them a sense of existence, a sense of control, a sense that they do not have to face their own shadow. That is why, when you react, they feel safe. When you get angry, they feel significant. When you explain yourself, they feel they have a place in your inner world. But when you become calmly silent, consciously silent, the entire system begins to collapse. No reflection, no emotional energy, no fuel to help them avoid themselves. This is the first psychological climax, because when there is no longer a reaction, the toxic person is forced to turn inward and face what they have been avoiding for a very long time. Their own shadow, the emptiness, the fear, the sense of meaninglessness. And that is what terrifies them more than any confrontation ever could. Not because you attack them, but because you are no longer protecting them from themselves. At this stage, many people make a critical mistake. They believe they need to explain more, justify more, prove more. But Jung suggested that when a person stops explaining and stops defending themselves, it is a sign of a mature ego. Not because they are above others, but because they no longer need external validation to know who they are. This is the turning point, from analyzing others to transforming the self. You stop asking, why do they treat me this way? And begin to realize, how did I allow this dynamic to exist? That realization shifts the entire balance of power. You are no longer pulled into someone else's behavior. You are no longer defined by their reactions. You stand grounded in your own inner space, calm, clear, and no longer available for unconscious games. Withdrawing emotional energy is not the same as closing your heart. It is a clear sign of individuation, the process Jung described as the true path of human maturity. You don't become cold. You become selective. Not everyone is entitled to access your inner world anymore. And here comes the second, more powerful psychological climax. Toxic people fear nothing more than the moment you stop participating. You don't engage in arguments. You don't engage in explanations. You don't engage in pleasing them. Because their entire system of manipulation only functions when you participate. When you withdraw calmly, the game ends. What matters is that this withdrawal is not driven by hatred. Jung never advocated extreme severance. Instead, he spoke of kindness with boundaries. You don't need to hurt anyone to protect yourself. You simply stop allowing yourself to be used as an emotional regulator for others. At this stage, kindness is no longer blind self-sacrifice. It becomes self-respect. When someone reaches this state of inner calm, it doesn't only change the individual, the surrounding environment begins to destabilize. The collective unconscious is used to operating through reactions, comparisons, and judgments. Calmness becomes an unfamiliar element. It unsettles others. They may feel uncomfortable, even disoriented, because they can no longer read you, predict you, or control you. And this is where a true turning point of inner freedom appears. When you stop seeking validation, you become unpredictable, no longer easily manipulated, no longer easily provoked, no longer living to be accepted. You begin living from within, rather than inside the gaze of others. At this point, silence is no longer emptiness. It becomes a sacred space, a place where you can hear yourself clearly. No noise of expectations, no accusations, no judgments. Within that space, the true self begins to emerge, without performance, without explanation, without proof. Jung believed that when false power collapses, peace does not appear as a fleeting emotion, but as a form of wisdom. You no longer need to win. You no longer need to be right. You no longer need to be recognized. That peace allows you to see others, even toxic ones, with clarity, without illusion, and without hatred. And this is where the journey truly ends. Not in defeating anyone, but in returning to yourself. When you are no longer pulled into power games, you are free. When you no longer react according to old scripts, you mature. And when your silence is no longer fear, but a conscious choice, you step into a kind of strength no one can take from you. If you are in this stage of life, trust this: you haven't lost your voice. You are simply using it more deeply. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. If you've listened this far, perhaps a part of you has recognized yourself in that silence. Not the silence of weakness, but the silence of a soul that has traveled far enough to no longer need proof. Inner maturity is not loud, but it brings a deep peace, one that no one can give or take away. If these reflections resonated with you, stay with the channel. Subscribe as a quiet reminder to continue the journey of understanding yourself more deeply. We'll meet again, in spaces of stillness like this,